Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. I'm back for another action-packed episode with Greg Machinery P. Peterson. Greg, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing well, Casey. How about you?
Doing good, man. Doing real good. We got little winter weather coming out. So I don't know what it's been like up your way, but we had some very nice days. We had 80 degrees yesterday, almost here in the Panhandle, Nebraska. We're going to get some snow tomorrow. So love spring this time of the year. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, we're on the yo-yo up here in Minnesota, too, southeast Minnesota. As we're recording here, we're supposed to get, I think, 4 to 9 inches tomorrow. I'm supposed to fly out to speak in Indiana a couple days. So hopefully it will kind of peel off a little bit, enough so we can get out of Minneapolis. But yeah, it's same here. It was like 65, and then here comes the snow. So welcome to March, I guess.
That's right. Never know what you're going to get. Just wait a day or two, and you're going to be a completely different subset of weather. So good times this time of year. Well, we are headed into probably one of the the hay season. To me is always one of those ones I feel like always snuck up on me when I was in the dealership, right? You're so busy focused on planters and sprayers and getting tractors ready and those kind of things, and getting combines ready and those kind of things, that May rolls around, that first cutting of alfalfa rolls around, and it just seems like it got there way sooner than you thought it was going to get there. And so I always made it a point to sit down about this time of the year and really think about where we were inventory wise with round balers and windrowers and big squares and those kind of things, and start kind of picking through the inventory as to what needed to go someplace else, or looking at some adjustments to those kind of things. It feels like to me, as I'm looking at auction values, when I see things out on the marketplace right now, hay is kind of one of those things that's kind of had a pretty good consistent run over the last year or so. It feels like there's been some strong numbers there. As you look at that market, Greg, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I would agree. It's been pretty strong, I'd say, the last 9 months or so. Of course, if you wind it back, we had good moisture in the spring, or too much, obviously, last year. But then as summer played out, what we were seeing on the auction market, you stay under that kind of that 50K markish, give or take. But I remember writing a post, a little blog last fall. We saw the 2 highest auction prices ever on New Holland round balers. And of course, a couple things there. I think they were both RB 560s. One was like 56.5. One was right in that neighborhood, 55. 2 days in a row. I found interesting, I think one of them came out of Southern Virginia. So you're drifting a little bit south to see those high numbers come in. But of course, when, even here on a $50,000 item, people say, well, yeah, that's a record, but it's a newer cost. So I think that was a 23 model. And if you want to buy that new 25 model round baler or whatever, we all know how they've increased in price. So that keeps the demand strong on the really nice condition used ones.
Yep. It's amazing what a round baler costs these days. When you go sit down and look at what a new one costs. I looked at one the other day, working with a guy the other day, and I looked at one, and I was just like, I had to make sure that I didn't have something like a special, like, salad special, something like that, clicked on it, because it was like $75,000 for a new baler. And I was just completely shocked by that.
Well, balers, pickups, tractors, eggs. I mean, yeah, it's anything and everything. I remember it's kind of interesting when you go back and look at the raw auction data, I go back 35 years. So once in a while we'll do that. We'll go say, well, what was the highest auction price on whatever. Grain carts were one I know that I did recently. I was standing at an auction. It was like December 3rd. It was in Dexter, Minnesota, real close to me here. Hamilton Auction Group. Andrew Hamilton had a nice little farm retirement sale. And it's a very strong sale. It was all pre-def tractors and combines. So, even though times are tight, things sold well. But I came away, writing about the grain cart, which I think it was a 23 model Brent. So you got 2596 and one of those big honkers. I stood there and filmed it for our YouTube channel, and it went for $170K. I'm driving half hour back to Rochester going, dang, $170K grain cart? So I went and looked 20 years ago, 2004, the highest auction price all year on that grain cart was $36,000. And then if you went 10 more years to 2014, it had doubled to, I think, $72,000. And then 10 more years to 2024, and you jump to 170. So now I'm saying, I'm getting old, but it's like in 20 years, are we going to be, probably won't be standing at an auction, it'll be online.
Yeah.
But is one going to sell at auction for $340,000? I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm around to find out.
Yeah. Your hologram will be at the auction.
Yeah,
standing there with your hands
that's
in
a
your
good
pocket.
idea. A hologram. We should have a machinery repeat hologram. We can send them to auctions all over
the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you disagree with machinery repeat, you can go up and take a swing at me in my hologram. I'll just duck it. I won't even feel it.
You won't see it coming. That's right. Yeah, you watch when I worked for the dealership, I always, through the years I worked there, I always tracked, kind of like the rules of 72, how often money doubles and all those kind of things. I used to always watch that on a series, and what I used to always find that you would see that between a series of machines, whatever that was, from the first build date to the last build date of that particular series, there was typically almost 50 to 60% increase, of course, across that time frame. And so in some cases, like, for example, I remember that when the 9770 came out. So between the last 9770 and the last
big jump
670, it was like $125,000 price increase between that time frame, right? And a lot of that stuff also had to do with there's emission standards and those kind of things that came into play where there was a huge price increase in the middle of that. But if you go back and look at, like, the 60 series to the 70 series, those percentages all stayed about the same, right? They never really changed much. And if you look at balers, are no different, right? We were talking like the first baler I ever sold, I think, was $35,000, and here we are looking at a machine that was 20 years ago. So now we're
what was
double.
What was the first baler that you sold, Casey? Do you remember?
It was the time I was working for an AGCO dealer. It was a Challenger. I want to say it was a 565, if I remember right.
Okay.
565 baler.
35K. That probably felt like a ton back then, I suppose. Huh?
It was. I felt like I was taking advantage of somebody when I did that, but that feeling didn't last very long.
Well, one interesting thing, we talk hay equipment, always kind of interesting, big square baler or large square balers. So I always thought, forged choppers and large square balers were always, to me, like, in terms of auction, the most exposed. You put one up, it'd be a really nice one, but your pool of buyers just wasn't as big. So it was always harder to tell when we get sale price reports coming in, like, okay, it brought X, but was this thing really good condition? So I would try to call the auctioneer and say, hey, that whatever, those John Deere 100s, or, I suppose, like today, I just saw an L341 come through the other day. Mm-hmm. Really nice. And saw a red one here last weekend. But did you sell many of those out? Are you away in Nebraska, Kansas over the years?
But, they just, we just had kind of started doing that. The weird thing about big square balers is it's really defined. Your region's really defined by the bale size, right? And if it's 3x4, 4x4, whatever it is, those kind of things all matter. And the that particular model that we had, it wasn't kind of something aside. It was just the 3x4 bale wasn't the I can't remember if it was 4x4 or 3x4. I can't remember which one it was, but it was just a different size than this particular area offered, and it was just kind of off a little bit. But that was,
right.
That was a thing.
That is interesting, isn't it, to look at geographies, 22-inch tires or 22-inch rolls. Yeah. Get up into the Red River Valley, and then some guys looking at a piece of equipment out of Illinois going, what in the hell? Why do they have those tires on that thing? Well, you don't live you're not growing beets,
Right.
So, compiling the raw auction data, and you would, in your chair as a used equipment manager, you're sorting through all that stuff too and assigning values to different configurations. And certain areas things are hot, other areas they're just not.
Yep. And that's we used to get we used to have a lot of tractors out here that were on that same deal and that's kind of that row spacing thing is kind of narrow, because out here we had 20, 22-inch and 30-inch rows. I mean, so it kind of depended on the program. And most of the 22-inch stuff has gone to 30. There's still some 20-inch row guys out there, but for the most part, having stuff like tires on like 390 tires, that were like about this wide,
Mhm.
they'd stack them 3 deep, and
Yeah.
they're about as wide as a regular tire when you got done with them. But it was that kind of stuff was always something that we, working with, at the time, working with like Dawson Tire, Axon Tire, those guys like that, trying to trade those 390s for 480s or whatever, and working your way through that was always an exciting
It
battle.
was interesting with that type of equipment back in the day before, online bidding and the internet started to rule everything. Now, of course, people are so plugged in, 5, 6 states away. Everyone knows what's coming up. And, it didn't used to be that way. So if you're having a sale out your way, Panhandle of Nebraska, how many people in Minnesota saw it? And you'd have these cross pockets sometimes, I
Yep.
always thought, or maybe like Red River Valley people would be interested in a certain other area, but you had to know about it. So like out your way, I used to get High Plains Journal, Midwest Messenger, Grass and Green, Farm Talk.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I think 25 to 30 papers a week I used to get. But again,
Yep.
pre-internet days, I guess.
Yep. I were doing that same thing. So when I started selling stuff, I worked in Wichita, Kansas, and the High Plains Journal, that's their kind of area down there, get the High Plains Journal come in, and I would always go look through the auction bills that were coming through, see what was coming up for auction, and start kind of trying to compile like what overall auction inventory looked like. And then there was always the house plan in there, because at the time I just got married, I was going to build a house. Never haven't done that yet, by the way, but I was going to build a house. But
it takes time to formulate a plan.
It does. I'd always look at those stupid plans there in the High Plains Journal, but back in the day, that was it. Like you'd get, like you just talked about, though. Oh, the green paper. I can't remember what that was called. It was the green sheets or whatever it was.
Green sheet, yeah.
Yeah, get that one.
Green sheet,
Yep, get that one come through. And so I try to hit the ones that were High Plains Journal, Nebraska, North and South Dakota. Try to find those ones that were in like the High Plains of Colorado, and then obviously like Missouri, northern Missouri, up into like Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, in that time frame. But that time, that was a whole different world. Iowa, Illinois. It was so far away, it didn't seem like it makes sense. So you're just trying to. I really kind of looked at it as a 500-mile radius of where I was at, and that's kind of my universe. But now when the internet, like we this week we'll see the second half of that, what we talked about with the Big Iron guys, the Solon guys there. That whole concept of the online auction just made everything such a small world that as you look at how that comes together now, I mean, Romania is not that far away to send something.
No.
You know what I mean? It's crazy how that works.
Yeah, that I mentioned that round baler that set a record, that New Holland Rollbelt 560 that came out of Southern Virginia. I think Jason Acock Auctioneering sold that one, one of those top 2 highest ones. But, and I was just down there filming with Jason for the TV show a couple months ago, and we got talking, and he mentioned he sent us a little video preview, a nice farm retirement auction. I can't even remember what the piece was, but he said within like 90 minutes of us posting it, he gets a call from a farmer in North Dakota. And it was like, that is exactly what I'm looking for. So the fact that it was Virginia, it didn't bother that farmer a bit.
Yeah.
So, the world as a farmer, as a dealer, as an auctioneer, I guess just our lives in general. I grew up, there were only 4 channels on TV.
Right.
Our parents just left the light on. It was when it was time for bed, we came home, went to bed. But had to make our own fun. Just a different world.
Yeah.
It is interesting to think back about those days with all those papers. My hands used to be black at the end of the day because I would put out the sale bills. I'm sure yours were too. Out of High Plains and High Plains up here in Minnesota, it was always interesting. They would deliver it, and I would get it like 5 days late. When the sale's happening, I'd be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Car auction out of Larn, Kansas has a nice sale tomorrow. So I call Larry up, and Larry give me the prices. But a lot of good memories.
Yep. And that's the thing too. You talk about, how small the world got. I remember when I first started doing this, the part of the negotiation process with the dealer, the customer I was working with, was we need to throw that delivery in for that, 100 miles. You need to make sure you guys take care of that. Now we're taking stuff to Florida for $8,500, $10,000, and it was just no one cares anymore. That I don't want to say nobody cares, but it's
Right.
that $5,000 trucking bill is just almost like a cost of doing business anymore. It feels like.
Well, I'll bounce this off you, Casey. If I got you on the age front a little bit, I'm an old dinosaur, but I'm finding the time is just speeding up. And here it's middle of March, 2025, and my wife and I were having dinner the other night, and we were talking. We're like, dang, it was 5 years ago this month that the pandemic hit. It was March of 2020, and they were like, how can that be 5 years ago? Because we're just all going warp speed, faster,
Right.
faster, faster. But in our world, auction and machinery and the farmer world, we've talked about it before, but that pandemic changed everything.
Yeah.
We'd had online bidding for 15 years,
Yep.
but like that Baylor in Virginia I talked about, after the pandemic, when all we could do was on our cell phones, that farmer in North Dakota, we all jumped over that barrier together in 1 week. And it's like, now I'm going to click the button and buy it, or you guys are going to ship stuff to Florida or Romania. It's just,
Yeah.
we're going fast, and the world is a small place now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the crazy thing about COVID is that I was, and I loved, I'm a purist when it comes to auctions, and just like anybody else is, I love going to sit and listen to guys cry at the auction. You know what I mean? That's one of my favorite things to do. Just listen to that idea. And then I think, where a lot of guys embrace that, hey, we're going to do the live auction and have the proxy bid stuff on the backside to where we can, get the internet auction thing going. And I was really I was a little bit worried about auction values when COVID hit, right? Because how are people going to embrace what we saw happen? And I watched it going like, well, Big Iron's got their thing. They've been doing it forever. By this time, Big Iron had been doing it for almost 20 years at that point, right?
Right.
And you look at like Auction Time and these different folks like this that have had these like continuous every Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever, things. And then how the Sullivans and the Steffleses and those kind of guys like that had, and Del Peterson and those kind of guys had done that kind of, we're going to do the live auction thing, bring in that local crowd, but we're also going to have it broadcasted out on the internet so you can go out and bid on it there. Which I watched a ton of auctions from my office. Just watch the live feed.
Oh yeah.
And the three reason. Oh yeah.
Like watching a ball game.
Oh, absolutely. And I was watching two things. I was watching how many people were bidding on each piece. I was watching how many people were at there, and then I was watching how many people were bidding online compared to were bidding in the thing. And I always had a theory that when the online guy won the auction, and there was like an online guy and an in-person guy were going back and forth, they also could have hit a price point too. But I always kind of felt like maybe the guy that was there knew something that the guy online didn't know. And he quit for a reason. It wasn't because of money, right?
Yeah.
He might have seen something or felt something or talked to somebody about something or whatever it was that the guy online did. And that was my big concern about when COVID hit and everything went online, is everyone going to kind of pull back a little bit and have this, start putting in some easements on their bid a little bit, where they were going to start, being a little more cautious, and actually prices went up. And what happened during that time frame? They took off, and they've kind of stayed that way since.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I was really worried when that time hit. I had a lot of auctioneers reaching out to me, Pete, what should we do? What should we do? And I don't think the auction space gets enough credit for leaning into that change. Like you say, they had the leaders out there, the Sullivans, the Big Irons, the Steffes, the Dell, DPA, others, online only, but it just changed overnight. Now, one thing you said there was really interesting to me, Casey, that you, as a used equipment manager, not just tracking the auction price point, but how many people were bidding.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, all these years when I would physically cover auctions in person, I would, be filming. We had 2,300 YouTube videos, whatever, stand there filming, and the bidding goes along. And you knew, certain items are hot. Like if it's you can't find like a really nice used grinder mixer. So when one shows up, it's like, oh my God, I just talked to 10 people here that want it. So then you watch the bidding unfold. And I always thought it interesting when the smart auctioneers always called out, they'd say new blood. And you already been bidding for 3 minutes. When that told that I always knew that it was going to run more, because that strong money waited, laid in the weeds, But that again was just a reflection of how, like you were tracking, how many people are bidding on this thing.
Yep.
And that tells you, is this a hot item or is it a dead horse? Are there just two guys bidding on it?
Yep.
So that's really an interesting data point for sure.
Yeah, I was tracking. I'd go back, and that was one thing I was more interested in. I was interested in that as much as I was the price, because if they got to a certain price and there was only a handful of people bidding on it. But some of that stuff you'd watch, and there'd be, especially when they're online and live bidding, you might see there's one time I saw 650 bids on the same piece of equipment because they were just going after it, and they were doing like. My joke all the time was always be, if I was ever an auctioneer, I can only sell stuff for $50 because I can only say 50, 50, 50, 50. That's all I can say when I'm doing it. And so we'd have to give out, we'd have to have a spotter just to count how many times people raise their hands so we could multiply it times 50.
Right. All these years tracking things, it's just data, right? What all this stuff sells for. So it's really interesting. Whatever angle you're coming at, like you were looking as a used equipment manager, like, okay, trying to get a handle on what this stuff is selling for. I'm just compiling. But I would watch, like I say, I would watch people bid, and information wasn't as readily available back then. People, they were subscribing to our info and our books and our early website, and they hopefully had an advantage. But if you know what an item, the going rate is, like let's say 100K, whatever it is, large square baler, tractor, combine, whatever, it's a 100K item. And whether you're there in person or online bidding, and it's like stuck at 82, or you can tell on those items that are in demand, and you're like, God, I'm bidding against 5 other people here. And I know it's $100,000 item. And, the way auctions go, whether it's online, those little increments or whatever, it's a momentum play.
Yeah.
That's why auctions that's why they're still around after a couple centuries, because it's emotional and the momentum builds. And I always stood back and thought, if you know it's a $100,000 item and this is catching fire at 80, just saw it off. 95.
Yeah.
It worked I never saw it not work, because I just call it the jump bid. But when you did that, you told everyone else there at the auction, this son of a gun is going home with this guy.
Right.
And, but then when it was a physical auction, you had to be ready for your buddies to say, what the hell were you doing? You went from 82 to 95.
Right.
But I always thought it sucked the oxygen out of the room, and you got it at a discount. Right. When that happened, a few times I saw it, I would look in the auction truck, and you could almost see the auctioneer go, there went my momentum. I lost the spark.
Yep.
But if you flip it, that's how you get a good buy.
I used to always, the fellow we'd sit and watch, we used to go to those auctions, stuff like that. Always be a bunch of used equipment guys that show up these things, and we'd, all get together and we'd bet on, who got closest to the actual selling price, and that whoever lost had to buy beers that night, right? So
I remember in my hometown, Rochester here, this was like December of 16, Sullivan's came up and did the big auction for SEMA equipment, right?
Yep.
And sitting at, where were we? We were downtown. We were at the place with the Bloomin' Onion. What's that called? Outback?
Outback Steakhouse, yeah.
Yeah. You and Aaron, of course, moving Aaron, people know Aaron real well. And was David there from H&R?
Dave was there from H&R.
Who else was there?
I was at a different dealership at the time, but Ben Baer was there. I think
Ben, right? Our friend Ben, right?
And there was a couple other guys there too. I don't remember who it was, but there's 7 or 8 of us there.
And how were you guys verifying? Because 4 beers in, Scout's Honor, it's hard to remember. My number was X. It's like, were you writing this stuff down on your arm or whatever?
We were the day of, we were going around and we had, you get the book, we'd write down what stuff was. And before we started bidding, we all get together and be like, all right, put your number down. We'd write our number. And then whoever it was, you'd plus 1,000, plus 5,000, minus whatever.
This would have been good Machinery Pete TV. You, Ben, and Aaron going head to head. And who was winning? Now, who tended to win? Or were you guys? I know how sharp you all are.
We were all. The crazy thing about with that, there was 7 or 8 of us, and I'm pretty sure that it was pretty much a wash. Nobody really was. I think one guy lost one more time than everybody else did, but it was. For the most part, we were all.
You're going to protect his name in this podcast, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. We didn't really. It was just. You'd watch stuff enough that you knew where the market was going, and right. We were all within $1,000 of the.
Okay, all the years, I'll put you on the spot here. We're just spitballing here. That's the fun of this podcast. But Do you remember any particular items like blowing your socks off, like watching it at auction? Either way, high or low, or you just went, "Oh my god, that was like, I can't believe what that brought."
Yeah, so there was a I'm trying to remember where it was. It was a Sullivan sale we went to, and I don't remember who.
Was it a farm auction or a dealer event?
No, it was a dealer auction. It was in Iowa. I don't remember where it was. I can't remember the name of the dealership. But anyway, they had a grain cart there, and this grain cart was beat up. It was, I mean, you're going to auger grapefruits at this thing. I mean, it was not, I mean, it was, it was bad. And I'm sitting there watching this thing sell, and I'm thinking, like, this is like a $25,000 grain cart.
Mhm.
And I want to say it ended up selling for like 55 or 60,000 bucks.
Yeah.
And even the guys that were sitting there were like,
What am I missing?
Selling for that much? What am I missing? I'm going the same thing. I'm looking at the auger, and the flighting's all sharp, and it's, it needs new flighting, right? And you're going through the whole deal, and needs auger, and the inside of the auger bin or inside of the grain cart bin's all, it's bad. You got real bad. I mean, I want to say one of the tires were even flat when they were selling it. It was just bad.
No.
And it was, it was red color, and it had been outside forever, so it was like a faded, nasty red color, and I just watched this thing sell. And so what happened was somebody had bought it in like, South America or someplace like that. So they were just looking at it from the perspective of, I can get it here cheap and I can fix it. I don't have to worry about that.
Sure.
There's one thing that I learned on all my travels international is how cheap labor is. Because there would be a guy that would, I was in Ukraine once, and we were walking through this guy's shop, and there was a 9650 maybe that was sitting on blocks, and it was all the way down to the frame. Everything was off of it. The cab was off of the whole. It was just the frame. Looked like it was starting down the factory line. And I'm like, what are you guys doing with this? He's like, every 3 years we rebuild our complete combine. We totally rebuild it. And I go, hey, how many? Because he goes, well, we'll put, we might put 6,000 hours on it in that time frame, because they just using one combine and these huge wheat fields. And I'm like, you can afford to take all the parts out and completely rebuild a combine? He's like, yeah, because he was telling me the money. Like, and so basically at the end of the day, the equivalent of this Ukrainian mechanic that was working on this stuff, he was getting paid about $200 a month to work on this combine. And I'm like, I go, well, I guess that makes sense, because in the United States, that would be more than the combine cost it if you were to run that.
It reminds me of, did you ever watch the movie Napoleon Dynamite?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the scene where Napoleon he's in the chicken coop, and the farmer pays him, works all morning, comes out to his lunch with the eggs, and he goes, sorry, don't
mind the change.
Napoleon takes his stash home, and he goes, that's like 6 cents an hour. So, no, but it's amazing. You mentioned different parts of the world, the cost of labor. That reminds me. So Kevin Sykes, our friend out in New York, the guy in the auction market who buys all the crazy low-hour Deere tractors, other items too, Willow Run Farms.
Yep.
I'm sure your listeners have seen them out there on the internet. But Kevin had the tractor I wrote about years ago. So he was a young guy in New York. He saw the 4020s going up in value, hearing the guys in the coffee shop talk about them. And he's a smart guy. So he goes, I'm going to get ahead of this thing. He's in his 20s, but he goes, I'm going to buy the nicest 4455 I can find anywhere. And so the internet wasn't really cranking or wasn't going. So he, through a DTN system of a dealer, he found one that a doctor owned in Michigan that had 3 hours on it. I don't know if it was 92 or 94 model, but 3 hours. The doctor bought it. He's got 2 kids. He's a doc. I just didn't use it. Kevin finds it through his dealer and buys it for $58,000, which, in the 96, that was a lot of money. Then he was a young guy, but he goes, I'm gonna test this theory. I'm bringing it home to my shed in Oriskany Falls, New York. I'm gonna shed it, and he did. He held it until 2012, and he put it up for sale. And I guess in the YouTube video you can get the exact number of people. I can't remember. I'm old and gray, but he put a hugely high number on it and sold it in a day.
Yeah.
But the guy who bought it was from Mexico. So when the Mexican guy reaches out to Kevin and is like arranging transportation, Kevin is thinking, oh, this is like heading for a museum. The Mexican guy bought it, and he goes, Kevin, don't worry how you pack it. Basically, we're going to beat the hell out of it. Yeah. Because this thing we can just like you said on that combine, we can rebuild this thing like 100 times.
Yeah.
So this is the nicest one I could find. Yeah, it cost, you asked, whatever, 150K. Cool. This is like a new tractor. It's simple. And again, what are you paying people in Mexico, 10 years ago to rebuild this stuff? So it's interesting. A lot of great, weird stories out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a unique place. The internet has changed the way people buy and sell equipment. And I think we're kind of headed in that next iteration now, have people buy and sell equipment based on how, technology and all those stuff coming down the pipeline. So that's a whole new conversation we'll talk about someday.
We have lots to talk about going forward, my friend.
I'll tell you what, we got a ton of stuff going on there. That's probably a good place to stop, Greg. Appreciate you being the podcast. You got some travels coming up. Where you headed this week?
Heading to Huntington, Indiana, Huntington University. They're having me out for their National Egg Breakfast event there. Great folks. They have a great egg program at Huntington University. Check it out if you have kids in school and they want to looking for a great egg school. So excited to get out there, and then my travel eases off a little bit, so I can come home to Minnesota and hopefully not have to shovel too deep out of the snow here.
You got snowblower, don't you? Living in Minnesota, don't you get issued one of those if you live in Minnesota?
There's a long story there. We need another podcast, and I will clue you in. My wife's name is Jackie. Your wife's name is Jackie. We probably should get them together to compare notes. I'd be in trouble, but no, it's Minnesota dealing with snow. It's just part of who we are. So.
Yep. Right on. Well, Greg, good talking to you, man. Safe travels. We'll catch you again next time.
Sounds great. Have a good week, Casey.
Right on. Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after this fresh break.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a Deere.
Welcome back to the Moving Iron Podcast. We got Rich Poston here. Rich Poston is with AG Financial. Also has a podcast called Critical Point Podcast that is out there on Apple Podcasts and where you can find podcasts. Rich, good to see you, man. How you been?
Good. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, glad to have you back, man. Talk a little bit about your podcast real quick, because with all the stuff we have going on in the market right now, it's a great thing to follow.
Yeah, a lot of things are free right now. I'm redesigning my website. Some of it's already up, but some of it's not quite functional. And we got 2 new subscriptions types to come out where it can make cheaper, where some people don't want the grains. They want the stock market. Other people want the grains, not the stock market. So I got some changes coming there, but got a new website, got news coming out. And on the old criticalpoint.podbean.com site, everything's free. All the subscription stuff even. So check out the videos and audios because I'm updating every day. Okay.
Right on. Well, worth the time to check that out. Even if you just subscribe to what's out there, that's the free feed that's out there. Quick hitters, 3 to 5 minute, 8-minute podcasts every day, kind of enlighten you on what's happening in the stock market, what's happening in grains, cattle, those kind of things. So all that stuff gets run through there really well. Well worth your time to take a listen to. All right, Rich, let's jump into this, man. So we've got plenty of stuff going on. If you take a look at where the overall stock market's at right now, we're kind of seeing things kind of teeter back and forth. We're in that that time period where we're seeing things move lower. Just across the time frame, we've seen the volatility that's in place. It's up one day, down the next kind of things, giving back everything that it gained type of deal. Before we started talking, you were kind of neutral as to what we saw happen in the U.S. right now. I didn't really see much change from what we saw, but you saw some stuff over in Europe that was taking place that you want to talk a little bit about. So let's talk about what you see happening in Europe right now.
Okay, so Europe, ever since World War II, basically, they've been so scared of printing money and causing high inflation. They know what happened in Germany, and so they've been very, very cautious compared to other regions of the world. And it really was getting to the point where many of us felt like they're just starving their own economy. They could have a better life than that without even working any harder. They just need a bit more money. Well, with Trump going on with Russia, Ukraine, and basically trying to pull the U.S. out, which is then causing Europe to wake up saying, boy, we can't rely on some of our allies anymore. We got to do things for ourselves. So they suddenly woke up, we can print some money. And I believe Germany claimed they can print $2 trillion to to put towards defense, and it's not going to hurt their economy. Well, they're right in the sense that normally how that works is it trickles through a building your business, because they're going to build some of their own missiles and tanks and planes and whatever else they got to hire. They're going to expand the military. So it creates an economic boom for them. Well, the interesting thing is my model was not necessarily picking up on the idea of that too dry, and I didn't have any clue of that. But I could see the way their economy was moving, something was going to break into the upside, something better. And I think it was around December, January, and then definitely in February, the model just jumped on an upswing in European stocks and said, this can be a brand new bull market. And boy, some of my competitors, friendly competitors, they were against it on it, and they were dragged their feet more than I. And it's just been a very nice up move, and it caught a lot of Wall Street off guard. And part of our weakness in the U.S. dollar is that money just got sucked out of the U.S. and it's heading for Europe, okay? So a positive note for them, I mean, maybe you can argue it's not the best way of growing your economy. I mean, we shouldn't have to have bombs and missiles, right? But it is what it is. You know, we've been doing things like that for hundreds of years. So, but they finally have turned the corner of having a little bit different economy here, at least. And I'm optimistic. I'd say their economy is growing into next year, if not the following year. And their stock market is outperforming ours. Ours is going down. We're down 10%. And fortunately, in December, January, I told all my subscribers, we got to get out of the market, And for those where I don't tell them exactly what to do, I just find signals and saying this might hurt you. And so I had a large number of them apparently jumped on the same board. We all got out, and I even bet on the downside and was kind of surprised of what I made, really, even though I was negative. I'm up 5% to 15% when the stock market's down 10%. So that was a nice little added bonus for me. And anybody who just got out and didn't do anything on the downside, and that's fine. And even retirement accounts, it's rather difficult to do that. You can soak up 4% interest rates and you don't have the risk. You're out of the market and let it ride. So it was just interesting. I remember writing, I think in January, to some little organization, little club of investors. And I just said, you know, this might be one of those rare moments that we buy Europe and sell US. And lo and behold, it worked. It worked a lot faster than I thought. I mean, it's been a little rocket ship there. So that means they might have to calm down eventually here too and stall out for a while. And if the U.S. continues lower and this trickles into a contagion where the whole world economy slows down, yes, they'll bring those those European stocks down. But I don't think it's going to bring them all the way back down. I think they got it where that's going to do well for them into next year to the following year. And now the question is, does it do better than we in the U.S.? And right. I don't know, because in case you haven't noticed, we're going through a major change in the U.S.
A little bit, yeah.
So anyways, that's my European story. I'm actually quite happy for them. It's interesting how it's been working out the last few years. You know, for years, I said, boy, Japan needs to wake up. I mean, they've gone nowhere for 30 years. And the economy was doing well enough. Their people was happy, but their stock market went nowheres and there wasn't anything exciting. And now they broke through too as well. If anything, they have to be a little nervous over inflation as their economy's moving faster than what they're used to. But it's so nice to see them pick up trade around the world and be back online, you know. And then to see Europe next, you can just see this money is flowing around the world where it's seeking new opportunities here. And that brings us to China, that they just put out another stimulus package, and people are getting optimistic on China. I can't be that big of a bull on China in the sense, where do I make the most money? Because basically China makes sure they take care of their people. Where in the U.S., our stock market is not about taking care of anybody, okay? The business takes care of itself, and it takes care of the investors, and everybody else, you're on your own, all right? Yeah. So we don't spread the money around like others. And this is the thing with Europe, why it might calm down their stock market eventually here a little bit, because they're also probably going to do a better job of spreading the money around. Nevertheless, I'm feeling rather optimistic for many countries around the world. And now for the U.S., we are in a minor long-term bear market. And as far back as June of last year, I said sometime in 2025, we need a -7 to -11%, maybe -13% move. We're down 10% now. And of course, all my subscribers saying, well, should we buy? Hey, it met what you said practically a year ago. Well, no, I'm not seeing the right ingredients here. And I got a feeling this market's got a ways to go lower. And I'm even coming up with a chance for a miniature 1987 crash. In fact, I shouldn't call it miniature because in 1987 it was down 36%. I remember that very well. I was writing a chart on the wall in our farm office, and we were unloading hay or something, and it was like when did that occur? In October. At any rate, I remember I think it was starting to snow or something. But I'm writing this chart, and I had to put the chart literally up at the ceiling and extend it down to the floor to keep up with the market as much as it dropped. My chart really wasn't scaled for that kind of thing. The point is, my model's warning we might see as much as a 30% drop yet this year. Okay. Because investors, even the people who are for Trump, have woke up. There may be pain before we get gain. Okay. And they're nervous and they just don't want to get caught saying, gosh, I knew it was going down. Why did I say be very long term? Why can't you be short term once in a while? So they've been dumping pretty good here. And I'm looking for a little tiny short term sell signal here in a matter of hours or a few days here. We'll see what we get. But I tell you, I don't see anything good for the U.S. stock market after the May, June, July timeframe. And I may have to wait till after October. Okay. And I've got some economic indicators that they don't look good, and they're not going to bottom early next year, but the stock market normally starts up ahead of those indicators. So I'm not saying that the stock market would do the same thing. It's just those type of indicators. We have other indicators that have actually had a problem for a little while. And it is true. I mean, a lot of this drama is this Trump changing the entire economy over to something like the 1800s, maybe even back to the 1500s. We just haven't seen it. We don't know how to deal with it. And, but really, we would have seen a business slump even without Trump anyways. We would have seen the stock market off 7-10% anyways. Now, the debate I have is I'm nervous that Trump's changing so many things. It's got to be more than -7 or -10% down. So I'm gonna be careful how I buy this. I don't mind missing out the upside and see some proof that we turn this economy around because it is slipping. It's eroding. And what's going on is we're shutting down the government a lot that's boosting unemployment. And I think in the April report, you're going to get a bit of a shocker just how much that unemployment jumped just because of amount of layoffs. Then again, some of those people have already been hired back. So, who knows what we'll actually get. But I think we have to consider that, yes, that cuts some of that government spending, but they really haven't found the savings yet. That can be long term. They've really spent more money doing this than what they're going to save. It really doesn't look good for what they're doing. And here they're supposed to be business people, but I've always questioned why we let business people in government, because government's not business and never will be. Okay. That can be a real problem. But I think, over time, things will get better. I mean, I'm optimistic for the country next year. Let's put it that way. I do want to buy this stock market, and I do want to be optimistic for the country next year. This year, it may be on shaky ground here yet, because the thing is trickling through from the government. The government, a lot of people don't realize when the Treasury prints money, that money goes to the government. The government spends for its bills, but that money goes right into your and my pocket. It goes into Trump working around inside the national economy. Some of it also goes to the foreign countries, and people don't like that. And sometimes I don't like it even. But actually, that money normally swings back. It's kind of like those countries are our extended family, our extended economy. So you got to be careful. Some of this stuff is really sensitive right now. I know billionaire Paul Tudor Jones said the same thing. He said that Trump was his president and he was willing to go forward, but he just said, man, things are sensitive and you could break something and really have a serious problem before we get things fixed and moved on. So it's going to be tricky here for those of us in the stock market, because I basically make 90% of my income out of the stock market, and I'm trying to be careful. And that's why I decided I'm going to bet on the downside a little too and see if I can make an extra buck. And I'm feeling pretty good with that, but I don't know where to go with it because I don't want to get trapped at a bottom and suddenly miss out, because boy, the stock market these days moves so quickly. I mean, my model watches by the minute, but sometimes it gives a signal and then I look at the price and I say, well, gee, I missed that one already. You really got to stay on top of it. But again, I'm looking out in 26, 27, and I have to be a bit optimistic for the world and the U.S. I just think the U.S. is dragging, it's lagging the rest of the world right now. And the rest of the world's moving forward, and the U.S. is, I'll say, moving backwards in terms of the economy and market, But I fully understand what the MAGA Trump people are saying but this could be another path that's going to be good later, So, I'm not totally convinced to go against it. I'm just nervous about it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, keeping things, new stuff out there. All right, let's jump over and talk a little bit about what you see happening on the commodity side. That's part of the things you put out. You follow the commodity markets. We've seen there. We see crop prices right now. 3 weeks ago, we lost about 50 cents, all based around tariffs. And what you see there, we've announced new tariffs and things kind of fluctuate, but we're starting to see some leveling out. The erosion basically between what you're seeing now in December and the front month are almost in parity with each other right now. I guess, Rich, as you're watching this commodity market right now, you're looking at corn, soybeans, and some of the proteins out there. What are you looking at, and what are you seeing?
By summer, I still say the market will at least be buoyant, firm, moving up somewhat at least. I still have to allow the next few years for some kind of a significant crop problem, and it's all over the map. It could be a minor problem. It could be gigantic. There's people out there looking for that Gleisberg climate cycle. There could be a huge crop problem, okay? And my model is saying we just have to allow that. But the model's also saying things aren't quite right where we can really get that excited and truly just bet. I'm not going to bet the ranch on a big up move. I'd rather wait to see it develop and get more and more involved with it over time. But the interesting thing is I can still see higher prices anyways, just from the economy, our domestic business. But we do have to be cautious here with the tariffs because a year ago, even back with Trump 1.0 back in 2016 to 2020, a lot of us thought, okay, tariffs are going to help make things more expensive. And it did back then. But I've since learned for commodities, the tariffs may make it more expensive to you and I in the store, and there may be some businesses along the way that make a little too much money off of that, but it works for them. But it doesn't really have to push the commodities themselves up by a large amount. And the timing of when that hits in terms of the overall business cycle, what occurs during a decade. And I study things of what occurs for a decade, during a year, and so forth. And then I like to build it into multiple decades. And you can just see the timing might be something where some of these, especially the Wall Street people, have been trying to bet that commodities will go up as well. And I can see I think they're waking up. I think we've lost some of the demand lately. It really doesn't have to turn out to be so. All right. So that's a tricky one because it might actually hurt our economy first. Then later, as we rebuild the economy, if you still have those tariffs in, maybe somehow that relates to higher grains. But at the same time, Trump was talking about maybe not worrying about exports, that we learn to just use all of our own production. Well, that doesn't add on my calculator, okay? And I don't think that's a good idea, okay? You'd have to cut back quite a bit of production to help balance and use that domestically so that you get a decent price for the farmer to keep it moving. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And now the next 3 years that for some generations they've never seen before. And so they're going to have problems analyzing it. For some of us that study hundreds of years of data and stuff, then it's not such a surprise. We can see some historical occurrences, events, and kind of learn how to handle that. And then I'm old enough that I've traded anything, and I've traded 30 some different commodity markets and stock markets for 40 years here, and learned the hard way on sometimes in the earlier years, so I can make it work. But I am concerned about younger generations. Do they really know how to deal with what's going to happen in stock and commodities, regardless if things go good or bad? You can just see there's so much going on right now,
Yep.
So I'm optimistic when I look out the summer. Right the moment, we're on the downside in the grains recently here, and even on my corn chart that's up for free right now, I show an arrow that the last little drop in corn was related to Trump more than anything else, frankly. And then I got thinking the model wanted to say it's going to rebound, and I thought, maybe that Trump stuff, that kind of shocked the system, but it doesn't really change anything right today. And I thought, well, seems like the corn market would then snap back, recognizing, hey, we got pretty good demand here. And, down in South America, their second crop corn might be a little too dry and stuff. And lo and behold, corn has come back some. But I got a feeling it's going to maybe flounder around, trade both ways here into quite a ways into April. and then we have to deal with the planting in May and have to watch the weather. So I'm telling myself the really nice up move, if it's coming, we may have to wait to June, July. But I would like to think it's going to start up slowly. We don't have to wait all the way to June to get some bullish move. And most of my people, they like to play the upside. So I help out where I can.
Yep.
But I don't see anything exciting of a big up move in grains here for another 30 days and maybe a bit longer. And but I do see a rebound by a summer here. And it'll just be a matter of how many fundamentals, how much news can we pile on top, how good can we make it. But I do think there's an underlying tone here to at least provide support and pick the price up. And since 1866 to date, if the corn market, especially the corn market, if it was up from October into May, June, July, or at least May, I should say, then if you got a crop problem, it was almost always a big up move. Whereas if you had weak prices early part of the year, even if you got a big crop problem, the prices didn't go up so well. And all that is just a sign of how good is the demand. And what is that S&D sheet? Well, the other thing, the market has already told us. I don't need to look at a USDA sheet, although I do. And in my opinion, we have the evidence in the USDA sheet. But basically, the market's been telling us all year long, I got enough demand where corn is worth more than it was back at harvest when we refilled that bin. And so what that means is if we can now bring a crop problem on, you're bringing it on top of a nice amount of demand. Whereas last year we had weak prices at the start of the year. And if we had got a crop problem, you would have been surprised or disappointed that it really didn't move up as much because the demand wasn't there going into the growing season. Yeah. Today we got the demand going into the growth season unless we lose our economy here. And right at the moment, I think we could back the economy off quite a bit more yet and back the stock market off. And I don't think the commodities are just going to fall out of bed. It's going to take something serious wrong with the economy to make commodities suddenly collapse or something like that. Unless China, of course, folds. And that one I don't know how to really quite forecast yet. At least they're printing the money and trying to help out. But at the same time, you could argue some of this money they printed, it didn't get much of a push. Yep. Or something better,
Yep, for sure. All right, Rich, that's a good place to stop. A lot of stuff going on, so folks need to really check out your podcast, what you have going on there. So, Rich, one more time where they can find your podcast and all the stuff you have going on there.
Yep, go to criticalpoint.podbean.com. And you'll find all the videos, audios, and I unlocked everything, and you can just start following through. And when I got those new subscriptions on, I think you'll agree with me. You're going to want to be on board and join us. I am on Twitter still. I'm also on Threads and Blue Sky. You can just punch my name in there as Rich Posson and probably find me. But the Twitter is @Rich_Posson, POSSON.
Right on. Rich, appreciate you being on the podcast, and I'll catch you again next time.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after this quick message.
Well, there they are, mocking you. See you next year, loser. That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like ExactApply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. I got Kevin Vandervoort with Hubers here. He's the you used equipment manager or remarketing manager?
Used equipment manager.
There's so many titles for the same thing that you got to ask that question before you actually introduce somebody. But Kevin is a used equipment manager at Hubers, and basically you guys cover what? New York, Pennsylvania,
Maryland, New Jersey, parts of Virginia, Delaware, and yep.
Right on.
So essentially from the New York border to the North Carolina border.
There you go. Nice little swath of America there to take care of. But Kevin, I wanted to have Kevin back on because that part of the world had an unprecedented 500-year drought type of thing that came through last summer that didn't get a lot of news coverage. That was, people didn't really know about it, but a lot of massive droughts there where, basically shut the entire ag side of the business down. And I wanted to get Kevin back on to talk a little bit about what that rebound looks like and where things are. But before we get too far down that path, Kevin, go ahead and introduce yourself and how long you've been with Hoover's and those kind of things.
Sure. So, yep. Thank you, Casey. Thanks for the invite. It's always a pleasure. So yes, I am the used equipment manager. Been doing this since 2013, August of 2013. This is my second go around with Hoover's. I was a parts traveler originally for about 6.5 years, and then had a hiatus there to do some other stuff. Came back into this position, and been trying to improve and learn every day to make sure that I am, positioning our used equipment with the market as best as possible here in for Hoover's. And it's we have a diverse market. We're blessed with that. We have dairy, beef, chickens, a lot of chickens. We've got some vegetables, some cranberry growers over in New Jersey, peanut and cottons down in the lower part of Virginia, a lot of corn and beans, some wheat and barley. So, in that respect, we have a nice demand for a lot of different equipment. And we can take advantage of that and kind of move some used from place to place. And just, yeah. So it also, you look at some cotton things that, that are going to have to stay in that cotton territory. And you look at some poultry units that are, have a little bit of a limited demand, but then there's, the hay tools and the combine, the tractors that are going to be used everywhere. So it's interesting, day to day. You don't know what you're going to look at, but once in a while, I look at a tractor on steel wheels because we are in the heart of Amish and Mennonite country.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, a number of years ago, I was reviewing a BX, so a Kubota compact. It was on steel wheels.
Yep.
That was interesting.
Yep.
Yeah,
there's some. So when I was back in Kansas working down there at the Deere dealer down there, there was a pocket of Amish in that area, and it was you'd have the open cab tractor with 8 or 9,000 hours on it because you can't drive a car, but you can drive a tractor to Home Depot and get the lumber you need, right? I mean, so it's a unique subset of equipment when you start looking at how all those things come together and play out.
Yeah. Sure. Yep. So yeah, so you mentioned the drought. Yeah, definitely. It especially in our Delaware, Maryland, Lower Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia territories, it was really, really hard. A number of farms that they didn't have anything to harvest. Corn that got burnt right up. And then we got a little bit of rain early, like in late August, early September, and then it just went dry again. And we had probably the driest harvest that we've had in anybody can remember. It was, you just went out and you could shell whatever you wanted to, beans or corn, any day you wanted to, pretty much from the time you got up until you went to bed. It just was, you went. And so everybody did. And so we had harvest was finished early. So that really changed the way the end of the year went for us. We didn't have that, kind of the last 2 weeks of the year rush, because everybody was done. They had plenty of time to sit with the accountant, check out what was in the bin. And then too, the shops were not as busy because everybody had time to, look at everything.
Yep.
So
yep.
It's definitely been a different winter, softer, kind of reminds me of pre-COVID. You didn't carry, half a year's business into the next year. We're playing catch up to the budget. So it's back to that normal, if you will.
Quote unquote, right?
Yes, yeah, quote unquote, exactly, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Just with where the new prices are, we all wonder what is the new normal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I talked about this a lot. I was looking at 2025, more like a 2017, late 2016, 2017, going into 2018 timeframe where things kind of start to mellow out a little bit and you start heading to that new normal, right? And then you start seeing things post up a little bit better where there's nothing's getting really like screaming eagle better type of scenario, but it's starting to firm up a little bit and you're starting to see some movement in certain areas, where things are starting to move around. One thing I've talked about here and Greg's talked about quite a bit on here is we've been watching the sprayer marketplace. It seems like the sprayer market is really firming up faster than I thought it would. And I really thought sprayers would be the last thing to firm up this year, just because of, if you're going to update something, that might be the last thing you update. But for everything we can see out there, I've watched several shows where the sprayer market seemed to be very strong comparatively to what you're out there. As you look at your sprayer market, what are you seeing there? Are you having any kind of demand for that? Are people looking to upgrade or move their, just do something with their sprayer business that you haven't seen for a while?
Yeah, fortunately, we are, I would actually say, light on sprayers.
Okay.
We didn't have a huge turnover from our commercial application accounts. So we've got 2 units, and I believe we'll have those sold out by the time they get into heavy spraying season this spring. And I think we're carrying about 4 other units on top of that. So we're in good shape. I just think it's all the technologies that are coming that are add-ons for the sprayers that are, it's an instantaneous reduction in cost with that stuff. Same way with, all of the technology that we continue to see on the planters where you can save one seed, back in 1995 and 96, when I was opening a bag of seed and dumping it in the box on the corn planter, if you dropped a couple of seeds, you didn't care about it. It was no big deal because they were a penny. Now what are they? $5 a piece.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that every one of them is precious and in the ground where it needs to be. So any of that technology that will save that is that instant return. And I think that's what's probably driving it the most is that instant rebate or that instant buck back, if you will.
Yeah. Yep. When you're looking at so from a precipitation perspective, where you're at now, I mean, are you out of the drought? Are you back in the drought? Are you kind of back where you're supposed to be? Like where are you at now heading into plant season?
We could use a little bit more moisture. It was we had some snow this winter, but it wasn't a huge amount of snow. And then we haven't had a lot of rain yet this spring. We had a little bit over the weekend here, but it's the ground's dry.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't see dust billowing behind, but yet there's not been a lot of people that have been tilling anything. There's people have been spreading litter. The Amish are, pulling you see the horses pulling the plows through the fields. But even that, it looks good so far. But if we go, I think there's some rain forecasted for later this week, and then it's supposed to be dry for a little while. But we'll take every bit of moisture we can get right now.
Yeah. So when you're looking at hay season right around the corner, wood chip guys' first cutting is in May.
Yeah.
We're how's that looking?
We're like 6-7 weeks away.
Yeah.
Right now it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would say we're in good shape on our used hay tools. I was looking at that this morning.
Yeah.
Checking out, where are we at? How do I feel like we're positioned, and in all the categories, we're actually compared to like the last 2 years of sales, we could actually have some hay tools on the lot yet to fill that demand. So I'm glad to see that. I'd rather be in that position than too many.
So what's demand? As my next question. So demand going into this time of the year typically is a big hay tool selling cycle between now and the 1st of May. Looking at windrowers, round balers, those kind of things. What's your demand look like, and what is, what's that market look like for you comparatively to where it was this time last year?
We're a little soft from compared to last year, but demand is good. We're moving hay tools. I've been looking at round balers. I've been looking at rotary rakes, tedders, wheel rakes, a couple small square balers. We'll be actually took a phone call. What was that? It was a bale handler that we had. I believe it got sold. So, I wouldn't say we're not any more demand than we were last year. Everything's greening up nicely, especially with the fact that we had, I would say, at least in Delaware, we had colder temperatures than we've had in a while without snow on the ground. So, it's progressing nicely.
Yeah. So I think this is a theme that I've heard a lot this year, and I'm curious to hear what you are. But are you, all things considered, with the situation with droughts and those kind of things, are you pleasantly surprised where you're at, or are you meeting expectations, or do you feel like you're off of what you expected for the year?
We were soft last year, and we are projecting that we're going to be soft again this year.
Worse than last year, or about the same?
Hopefully less than last year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, knock on wood, right? Yeah, hope for that. So as you're looking at row crop tractors, that's another thing too, that as we're going through this scenario, I follow row crop tractors. As far as I'm concerned, that's the pulse of the equipment business, right? Because they're the last thing to really fall out of bed, and they're the first thing to pick back up when things come back around. It feels like there's some row crop tractor demand. You're starting to see that 325 to 400 horsepower tractor. Feels like there's some demand for their demand coming back together. As you look at your mix right now, Kevin, how do you feel your row crop tractor demand is right now?
I would say it's off for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to come back from a drought, man. It's
yeah.
It takes so much to get out of a drought. I mean, just even if it starts raining again, it's just the mentality of getting back out of a drought. It takes a while.
Yep.
And that's definitely something that, especially in an area where, like out here in the Panhandle, we're 30 days from a drought at any time, right? I mean, we could get 8 inches of rain, and 30 days later, it looks like it's as dry can be based on soil, because of the way our soil is. But in areas where you're typically not used to having drought-like situations, and you're getting rain, it's the stigma that comes from the drought cycle. It's hard to overcome, and it takes a lot of trust, I guess, the best lack for a better term, of making sure that the crop you plant is going to come up and it's going to stay that way. Did you see a lot of Did you see a lot of movement on?
Right, everybody's wanting to hold on to the dollar they got.
Sure, yeah. Are you seeing movement on stuff like last year where, and I know you guys aren't in the chopper business, but looking at some of the choppers and stuff around, did you see an influx of choppers in the area start popping up because of that, or was it that bad that they couldn't even chop it?
I'll be honest with you, because we don't sell them. I have to be honest. I don't pay as much attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, there was corn to be chopped.
Yeah.
It was definitely up, but there was corn to be chopped.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any like dry bunkers yet, as far as like the bunker silos.
Right.
and you know, a number of the bigger dairy farms, they're going to chop first,
Sure.
and then once
Yep.
the bunkers are done, then they'll let it go and
Right.
they'll, shell it.
Get some dry feed out of it. Yeah. That's the one thing too, is on the flip side of that, when you're looking at dry situations like this and what that does to your combine cells, how you sitting on combines right now? What's that look like for you?
I'd like to have a few less combines.
Everybody likes to have a few less combines, Kevin. That's the correct answer. You win today's trivia question on the Moving Iron podcast.
Yeah. We were, unfortunately, our new sales and used sales were off last year.
Yeah.
You know, and not, it was a direct result of the fact that we had that drought.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get people to spend money when they don't have it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So I guess as you sit here and look where you're at today, looking out through the end of 25, this next growing cycle, going through order writing periods and those kind of things, as you anticipate what's going to happen, assuming the crop gets planted and assuming that everything comes back like it should, and you've got a more wet growing season than you had last year, kind of knock some of that drought down a little bit. As you look at this, do you feel like there's pent up demand with folks that they're going to come and start looking at maybe upgrading some stuff if there's an opportunity there? Or do you still feel like, I know you said you feel like this year's going to be soft, but do you feel like in the right situation there could be some demand, some pent up demand that could be that could come to the table?
I'm hoping so, but I really feel like in our area it's going to be a situation of we're buying something because we have to, not because we want to.
Yeah.
More it's going to take like a catastrophic failure or something like that that's going to drive the sale more than, oh, okay, you know what, it's been a couple years, let's go ahead and make an upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so dry out there that you evaporate the cabs off your tractors in November. Yeah. Kevin, I appreciate you being on. If folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what you're doing at Huber's, what's the best way to do
that? Email me at Kevin or at kdvandervoort@huber.com. That's kdvandervoort@huber.com, or call me at 717-598-7463.
Right on, man. Kevin, appreciate you being on, man. Love having you on. Good to see you again, man. We'll hopefully see you this fall at Moving Iron Summit.
Sounds good. Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it.
And we'll be back with more Moving Iron podcasts after this commercial break.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a Deere.
All right, welcome back to the Moving Iron podcast. We are at Commodity Classic 2025. We've been here this whole week, and I've got Kyle Berry and Clinton Schaffer here with me to talk about precision upgrades here with John Deere. So, guys, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because I think this is the future of agriculture, especially on the equipment side when you look at stuff. And I think the biggest reason for me that I say that is you look at, we're sitting underneath the boom of a Hagie sprayer, and they're a brand new one of those is pretty pricey. And not everybody can get one of those, but the technology associated with that sprayer you can get, right? So I think that's the cool thing I like to talk about when you're looking at these upgrades. But before we get too far into that, Kyle, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do for John Deere?
Yeah, my name's Kyle Berry. I'm the manager of Precision Upgrades Marketing. So myself and my team wake up every day thinking about how do we get more technology onto machines that customers already own. So I've got a team of folks that are spread throughout the U.S., working with our dealers and our customers every day around product compatibility and how do we get more technology on those machines. Like you said, it's not everybody has the means, especially in these times, to go out and buy new. And so having a full portfolio of products that allow us to meet the customer where they are, take the machines that are already in their sheds, upgrade them to the latest technology, whether it's planters, sprayers, combines, air seeding, you name it, tractors. You talk about autonomy, like that's where Precision Upgrades really fits with those customers. So it's really exciting.
Awesome. Clint?
Yeah, so Clint Schaffer, I'm the product marketing lead for Precision Upgrades, and similar to Kyle, the team and I, we wake up every day and we're thinking about how can we bring that latest technology and add value to that farmer's operation. And it's really fun to be able to see a lot of that latest tech that we usually associate with new pieces of equipment, being able to bring those into that planter that's sitting there in your machine shed, right? So how do we get that to that latest technology? And through Precision Upgrades, we have some great options there.
Right. So let's spend a little time talking about the other portfolio that you have as upgrade kits goes, right? Everyone's familiar with the sprayers, everyone's familiar with the planters, but you start looking at upgrades for tractors, upgrades for combines, and those kind of things. Walk me through a little bit what we see coming.
Yeah, so we'll hit tractors quick because it's pretty small. Tractor implement Ethernet is one, and it's an enabling technology for some of the newer techs and implements like Clint mentioned SeedStar 5 when we were talking about planters. So FurrowVision, ExactShot, some of those technology, new planters are all in SeedStar 5. The amount of data that's coming from the planter into the cab was so much that we needed higher speeds and more data capabilities, and Implement Ethernet unlocks that for us. So we can put Implement Ethernet kits on tractors. You can get an integrated kit through Precision Upgrades, or our ISG friends have a universal kit. So maybe you don't have a John Deere tractor, but you have a John Deere planter. We got a universal kit for those customers. And then autonomy is going to be the big one that you're going to hear from us a lot in the coming months and years from tractor upgrades. And also tillage. But then when we think about combines, Clint mentioned combine auto unload, so that's new as of Commodity Classic for model year 20 S700s and model year 21 and newer X9s. So that's kind of the compatibility range for that feature. But we also have adjustable auger spouts for model year 18 and newer S700s, and then we also have cross auger shutoff. So the adjustable auger spout's pretty self-explanatory. It gives you the ability to aim the spout from the cab of the machine. Cross auger shutoff, what that does is there's clutches on the cross auger drives, and it allows you when you trigger the unloading button off, rather than it just cut off immediately, it actually runs for a few extra seconds to clean out the grain that's in the unloading auger, so that you're not running around with all the weight in the unloading auger, but also when you go to fire it back up, there's not all the stress on the components of trying to turn that auger back on with all the grain in that. So those are two upgrades for S700s. You can bundle them together if you want, or you can get them a la carte from each other. But then I'll maybe let Clint talk about the X Series.
Yeah, the other one that we have for the X9, we have remote separator grate covers. So for our folks, especially up north in like small grains and things of that nature, they like to really be, as they're switching crops, they like to be able to adjust their remote or separator grates. And really today, there's covers out there. You got to get out and you got to manually adjust those covers, right? So with remote separator grate covers, you're able to do all of that adjustment in the cab, right? It's all fully integrated at that point in time. And that's always a common theme of Precision Upgrades. We want to make sure that we're always being integrated in with the John Deere system, right? You don't have extra foot pedals or anything else. It's all integrated into the system. The other one that we have for the X9 is going to be the concaves and remote concave covers. So we have a new concave system that has some great threshing capacity and has a lot easier to handle from a size-wise. So you can swap out concaves significantly faster. And you can even interchange different sizes of concaves, things of that nature. But then you can also put remote covers on them then as well. And very similar to the remote separator grates, you can make all those changes in the cab. You don't have to get out to make those changes. So those have been some probably primarily up north and in Canada has been been a lot of the focus on there, but a great option for those folks. And speaking of our friends up north as well, and also throughout the plains, but we have some amazing upgrades for our air seeders as well. So And I know that has been an incredible, exciting aspect, was just getting these upgrades. So we have a kit called the AccuRate stainless steel meter kit that you can end up upgrading on a 2017 or newer 650 and 850 cart. And then we're incredibly excited to be launching the 1910 carts all the way back to 2005. And what this gets you, it's not just similar to like our Ultimate Planter upgrade, right? It's not just a stainless steel meter. Guys have been replacing those for a long time. This is actually getting you all the technology as well. So you're getting the electric meters, you're getting turn compensation. I believe you jump up to 8-section control within that system. So you end up getting all of that latest technology. You're also getting a new calibration system with EasyCal that saves up to 75% calibration time. Just a lot of those different aspects of being able to again increase that efficiency and maximize your time while you're out there. It's also stainless steel, right? So we're working with 316 stainless steel, so you got corrosion resistant if you're putting fertilizer and things of that nature out there. So these have just been a great upgrade kit for the folks that are running air seeders.
Yeah, and we're excited. I mean, traditionally, when people think about upgrading, like the first thing they think about is planters, right? And so we got a customer and dealer network all over the place that says, I don't sell planters. I don't have any planters anywhere close by me, but I have air seeding, and I have all of the challenges that our small grains customers face every single day. And with some of the technology you just talked about, we're trying to bring upgrades for every production system out there. So whether you're a corn and soybean grower, whether you're a cotton grower, whether you're a small grains grower, we've got a very vast portfolio that's helping solve problems for customers all over the globe. Honestly, we focus a lot on the U.S. and Canada, but they're applicable across the globe. And so, you mentioned the remote covers, whether it's concave covers or separator grate covers. Threshing conditions change throughout the field all the time. We know that the likelihood of you making a change if you have to get out of the cab is much lower. So if we can make it easier to make that change, you're probably going to make it. And you might be more efficient and more profitable because you got more crop in the grain tank instead of it running out the back of the machine or whatever might happen. And so, taking these technologies, and some of them that don't seem earth-shattering, but it impacts the customer's bottom line, and knowing that you don't just have to grow corn and soybeans to have an upgrade available for you. We're really excited about what the 1910 air carts, I mean, we're talking about going back to 2005, and that's what our planter portfolio goes back to as well. That's almost 20 years, so I guess it is 20 years now, of product that's in the marketplace, and some of it still has usable life left in it. And now we can upgrade it. You're going to have tires and tanks and a chassis, but we're going to send you everything else to bring that air cart back to life and give you technology that maybe you never thought was going to be possible.
One thing I will say about upgrade kits that I think is a little bit different than what I think some people think about, but this is kind of a leveling of the field a little bit. I don't have to be the biggest of the big farmers to go out and be able to afford this technology. I can go out and get these technologies as needed as they fit my production program and what that looks like. So as I need to make that next leap up, I don't have to buy the entire platform. I just have to buy the piece that's going to get me to the next level I need to go to. So if you look at how that flattens out across the competitive spectrum of big to little, it kind of all fits in there now to where everybody has an opportunity to play in the same game.
I think it can expand the usable life of some of these machines that customers have on their farm, and it's not just about there's wear parts and components, and we the aftermarket business is ready for a lot of that. But how do we take machines that they maybe thought I need to go to something new, and you can. We have plenty of new machines we'd be happy to sell too, but there's only a certain percentage of the market that we can hit through new or even used, and how do we capture more of the market with upgrades and allowing customers to take the machines they already own. They might be paid off and they like it that way, and then they can adopt a new technology year over year to continue to increase the profitability on their farm.
Well, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and talk about this. I love talking about these kind of things. This is where I think the direction of equipment's headed. So appreciate you guys being on, and we'll catch you again next time.
Thanks for having us.
Well, there they are, mocking you. See you next year, loser. That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like Exact Apply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
Hello, and welcome back to the Moving Iron Podcast. I am Greg Peterson and I are here at the Sullivan office site in Hamilton, Illinois. We're going to talk to the Big Iron folks about what they see coming. And we actually had a pretty good opportunity, Greg, to be in the room with some I would consider the real bangers in the auction industry, guys that have been doing it for a long time. And you've covered the auction industry for a long time, so you're familiar with a lot of these folks. But I guess talk a little bit about what you see happening in the auction market right now.
Well, early 25 year, it's interesting time, Casey. I mean, I think what we're seeing is kind of a split on the auction pricing based on a couple things. I mean, condition of the equipment, of course, is important, but, coming off a period when, there was such a shortage of good used equipment that, folks, we were seeing high prices all over the place. And in 2024, things began to pivot a little bit. So now you're seeing some splitting on auction pricing and a lot of factors involved. So as I come down here to Hamilton, Illinois with our friends at Sullivan Auctioneers and Big Iron, like you said, we had fun last night sitting talking with the guys. And this is a form of content that I always wanted to do, Casey. We have a kind of a room here in Sullivan's great facility, and we've got some great experience in the auction and the equipment industry here. We're going to have a fun conversation today.
For sure. I would agree. Well, before we get started into that conversation, let's just go around the table real quick. Everybody introduce themselves. Tim, to start with you.
Sure. Tim Meyer. I'm from Wayland, Iowa. Been in the auction business for over 30 years, and I enjoyed the real estate end of it, the equipment end of it. I've definitely been involved in the transportation end of it and also the construction end. So not too many ends of the auction industry that I haven't done.
Right on.
Yeah. Dan Sullivan, been in the auction business since 1979. Was at our very first auction we held on Saturday, October 13th. And I just, I light up when they talk about auctions. I like all aspects of it. I kind of echo what Tim said, everything from A to Z. And it's great to have a good support team around me to make us look good.
My name is Mark Stock, and I live by St. Edward, Nebraska. Been in the auction business since 1984, so just coming out of our 40 years in this space. Started like most of the people I do, I think, with some household auctions, and then you work your way up into some farm machinery, and then if you're fortunate enough to pass the real estate exam, you can start selling real estate. So happy to be joining you guys.
Alan Henslin from Bird Island, Minnesota, second generation out of Deere. My mother and father started the business in 1981, and I've been selling farmland and farm equipment, and been selling for 27 years in the auction profession. So enjoy every minute of it.
My name is Jeff Huff. I reside in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Went to auction school in 1983, so north for 40 years of experience. I'm a licensed real estate broker in 2 states, licensed auctioneer in 5 states, mainly focused now, but just like everybody else, started out with household goods, antique auctions, went all the way from obviously some really outstanding real estate and farm equipment auctions, also sold cattle as well. So it's been a great ride, and looking forward to that in the next 10 or 15 years.
Nate Larson. I live on a small farm outside Mediapolis, Iowa. 15 years in the auction business, had a prior career in banking, and I've been mainly involved in real estate and the auction part of my career, although I've sold quite a bit of equipment. The main focus of my book of business has been working with banks and troubled debts.
No, it's super fun to have this group here to talk together, and maybe I'm curious to get Alan's take about, joining forces here with Sullivan's, and because your brother up from Minnesota, and there's nobody better than your dad, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. he started this business, like I said, in the early 80s and worked hard. He used to be Norling Henslin. And growing up, I never thought I'd be in the auction business because it was a lot of work. And I saw how hard they worked every day, weekends. And as time went on, we got to a point where they were, especially my mother was thinking about cutting back and wanting to retire. And she was the one that watched the checkbook down to the penny. That's one thing that Dad and I never had to worry about, was who was in control of the money, because she did a really nice job, and our staff too. We had just a really good staff that supported us for 40 some years. So it worked with the Sullivans, two family names that just shared the same values, and we ended up getting together, and it just was a natural fit for us.
It's me, Alan, to see you excited.
Yeah.
Because we've had so much fun over the decades talking, and we talked last night at dinner. You and Dan and Mark, you guys, to me, across the industry, we're seeing the power. You guys would send me a little note about your sellers or about your buyers. And you guys are moving warp speed, having these sales all over the place, but taking time, in my thinking, to honor both your buyers and sellers in a true way that's not self-serving. You care for them. And it's been fun for me to watch you guys build out your business that way. And Alan, I know that's just something you and your dad hold up there. Your dad might be the definition of Minnesota nice.
Yeah,
He just is.
he gets along with everybody. He gets every day. He's on the phone. The amount of repeat business that we have done and that the Stocks have done and the Sullivans has just been incredible. We've had a tremendous following. We just have a lot of people, not only in Minnesota but in the United States, that have always had our back and always went to bat for us, and it's been very, very humbling just to have the amount of support that we've had, because not one person could get here. It takes everybody. It's not only this group, but it's our entire staff, from everybody that's taking care of the calls every single day, all the sales reps. This is quite a company. I could confidently say this is the best auction company, I think, in the world.
And Dan, I'll throw it back to you. This assembling of talent, this is just a small bit of it here, but I know you're excited about pushing forward and doing what you love.
Yeah, absolutely. People say, when the change, coming on 3 years, when they acquired Sullivan Auctioneers, Mark and Ron, I don't know how many times early on, how do you like retirement? And I'm here every day, and I hope to do it forever.
Yeah, that's I can.
We just have a great family. I love it. I don't call it work. I really, really don't. I just can't believe how fortunate that I'm able to do something every single day that I just love to do. I remember early on, my dad would say, Dan, you're doing too much. You're gonna get burnt out, and it's hard to get burnt out on something you love. So I plan on doing it, and have this team around, like you said, Tim and Nate and Jim up and Alan and all of us. Where would you go anywhere and find this much talent and these people that we could say are on our team when we're all together, Casey and Greg? So yeah, pretty exciting.
Well, Stan and Mark, both of you guys, again, going back, thank you for your support all these years with what we're doing and what Casey and I are doing now with, the podcast. But Mark, I know you feel the same, the care of your buyers and sellers going back. You started in 1984. You and I are the same age, building it up out of nothing. And here we are today. It's a very competitive business, but lots of change, and you just kind of keep evolving, pushing forward.
Well, I think one of the reasons why it works so well is we try to surround ourselves with people that are passionate about having a purpose. And the purpose is to help that seller have an excellent result, and then passing that seller's item, the torch, so to speak, to the bidder, the buyers. That way they also have that great feeling, and they know that they were treated fairly through the entire transaction. That is so important in any business, not just the auction business. If you don't take care of your customers, somebody else will. So we really focus on taking care of our customers, and the reps that we have that are not in this room today. We'd have to have a gymnasium just to put all the Sullivan reps and the Big Iron reps and the Henslin folks and everybody else that is involved here in this room. They will all have stories about, they are getting Christmas cards now from people that they sold from 5, 6, 7, 10 years later. They are figured, they're counted on as members of the family when they do a retirement sale for some folks. And that's the emotional part of it that everybody that I know that's in this business loves to continue to do time and time again.
Because it's still personal.
It is personal. It's very personal. Farm machinery is extremely personal. A couple of real important dates to a farmer. Number one is the day they get married. Number two is when the birth of their children. But number three is they work their whole life for their retirement. That's on their calendar in many cases. They want to retire. Some people go a little longer than maybe they should, but that is a very emotional day, their retirement day. And we like to memorialize that event, especially when you present them with a picture of their favorite item, because they'll tell you when they're walking around the place. You guys have all had those conversations. So, yeah, I bought this tractor. I remember this is the only one I ever bought brand new. You know, just in the voice and the tone that is going to be a tough one for them to watch drive down the driveway and leave the place. So we like to capture those images and have them stand there and put the sale price and give them a little picture at the end of the deal. And you just do all those little bitty things that memorializes that part of their life, just like their wedding album is memorialized somewhere on a photo book.
Casey, as having sat in the dealer chair, usually equivalent dealerships, curious to your take on that, the reality of the personalness.
Okay.
The equipment and your customer's connection to it. How did you see that from the dealer side?
Everyone's tractor is the best one, right? I've never met never kind of better tractor about that. Everyone's got the best tractor. No, but I understand what it is too. I mean, that's kind of starting to fade a little bit. It's not like it was when I first started out, but this, how many tractors I looked at that would say this was my mom's tractor. Hey, this was grandpa's tractor. Hey, everybody had a tractor, you 10 tractors on the farm and everybody had their own little tractor. And I think the thing about what you're talking about, memorialize those things, is it's that same thing. Like, how do you think my tractor's not an average tractor? It's my tractor, right? And you get that feel for it. And I think that's one thing at an auction that you see more than anything, is that you can see which one of those tractors was prepared, like he's talking about. And typically that machine does sell, especially when you put a camera in the guy's face to say, hey, explain to me why this is such a good tractor. He's gushing about how what it is, and the generations that have been on that tractor and those kind of things that come into that plays a big key to that. I think from my perspective as a dealer, when I was looking at stuff to sell or to buy, when there was a little video in there about, tell me about your tractor thing, that actually made it a little more easy for me to be more buy off on it. Because you can see between the lines, like, he's telling a story about the tractor, but it might not be the best thing. He's not lying, but he's not nearly as, this is a good one. He's not really that fired up about it.
I got put in for Casey. So this is our friend. I believe he's with you guys now, Mark. Kurt.
Yeah, goes the idea.
Well, from Heritage Tractor.
Oh, yeah.
Miller. Yeah, Kurt Miller. So he was manager for a great deal of Heritage Tractor there. And I was telling a story about trying to personalize equipment. Again, just paying attention to what Dan, or if we're doing it on the auction side, telling stories about sellers on the front end. And I've been saying for years, and I'm a son of the third generation dealer, and I know on the dealer side it gets very busy, there's high volume, but how can you personalize even those trade-in items that you get in? And Kurt was listening to my story, and he went back to Missouri, or I think it's from Kansas maybe, and he said, Pete, I think I got one for you. And the guy had a Gender 9570 SDS he was trading in that he'd washed over the years with a toothbrush. Oh, boy. So, yeah, I said, Kurt, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, he's a farmer. He's not a soapbox guy. He doesn't like to say how great my combine is. But I said, Kurt, just get the dude in front of the combine. Just talk to him a little bit with a cell phone. Kurt sent me that clip, and I put it out, and I was like, hey, folks, my friend Kurt with Heritage, look at this one. They just traded in, and it sold in a day for asking price. So as a dealer, you're trying to sell for whether new or used for as much as you can. And I always thought maybe a missed resource here in your customer who's trading it in.
Yeah.
Now, we're here in the Midwest, so we fight that a little bit about, you guys know, farmers don't like to say it. My stuff is, they think it's the greatest or whatever, but getting them to say it But you guys have both kind of, and Alan, you would send me video clips talking to the seller. And people always get nervous, like, oh, it has to be Hollywood. And it's like, no, just the opposite. Just be you and just say, even if the thing's a piece of crap, just say, man, I've had some issues with this day. And guess what? You guys have,
You're getting rewarded for that.
you're rewarded for that honesty. Right.
Yeah.
And I've seen you guys all do that in your own way, with your own style. And I've been the scorekeeper on the side here, and it's just been a joy to keep track of. Casey, one other question. Did you ever get farmers that come into you want to trade something in, saying, Machinery Pete said my tractor is worth X?
Say that from time to time. And I say, who's Machinery Pete? Yeah.
Oh, my brother. You gotta watch this.
There's a lot of stuff to come in, because that's the thing about the internet now, right? It's such a small world. Everybody can see this. You can watch 5 different auctions about the same time. You have a few, all these things that are going on, and you can see those things. So the overarching component now, as you walk into any deal now with the customer, is that they understand what the market is. Whether they want to believe what the market is, that's another topic. But they understand, they see the numbers, they see the things that are coming through, and like what you guys are doing it's really giving that ease to access, right? Access information, right? I can go on your website. I used to do it all the time. Go on your website and look at past sales and sort out the things I'm looking for and try to see what things are bringing and what the sell prices were, those kind of things, and trying to see where that bar needed to be at when you start looking at trade values and start working your way through that. So yeah, there was plenty of times guys came in and said, I've watched Machinery Pete TV and he said it's worth this much.
Oh, it's been so much fun. And Dan, we're sitting here, and I told you last night, I realized as I was driving down a 5-hour drive from Rochester down here to Hamilton, that it was 16 years ago last week was that auction you had March 6th of 2009 for Wayne Crooks. And of course, the internet with social media wasn't a thing yet. I hadn't started YouTube yet. But that Wayne, of course, had the 4440s, with 3 of them, one with 47 hours on it. And I wrote a blog about it like a week out because you guys reached out. Now, when you get those crazy little hour abs, of course, the number one question is that real? And you guys filled in the blanks, and you just told me about Wayne. And so that was 16 years ago. That auction really changed the Machinery Pete business, because I came down here. I've been sitting in my basement doing my thing for like 25 years, but I'd been out covering auction. But when I came down here for that set,
Tractor got him out of the base.
I numbered like 3,000 people here, but everyone, they were all interested, they just wanted to be around. And when you pulled that truck in front of that 4440, I tell people that's the damnedest thing I've ever seen in 35 years. It was quiet and quiet. Because what's Dan going to sell this for? Of course, our friend John Kinsenbach bought it. And when I see him now, I tease him, he bought it for $58,000. What's that thing where it's not? But no, you guys, again, you've always honored your buyers and sellers. And I think been a credit to the auction industry that both you guys, and all you guys, you have done your thing over the years. And again, I just throw it back with this team you built, looking forward with technology. What makes you smile getting up out of bed every day?
Mm-hmm. The business, like you said, and there's sales that auctions you look back on and you remember, this particular auction, and going back to the Wayne Crooks deal. Of course, the reason when you fill in the blanks, that gentleman, there was a time there where they had a vein of oil under one of his farms, and there was of course, he would get on and all this information available, but he didn't want to sell this place, his land. They said, well, we'll give you X number of dollars for it. We'll buy you a full line of equipment. And they did. And so he just put it in the shed and didn't use it. So, that sale, you can look back to Southport, that large custom harvester sale that we had, that set records, you were at that sale as well. But I'm going to kind of turn it just a moment, Greg and Casey and everybody. You look at Machinery Pete. You got word machinery, moving iron, big iron. A big part of our company is land. Well, in this conversation, which is, we talk about it, but land is huge, and we have the very best people to sell land, and a lot of those folks, the people are behind the scenes, but we still do a virtual live auction set right there, and it's live, and talking about the online and the machinery, and like Nate said, you couldn't get 100 and some thousand people in the stadium. We sell these land auctions, and I happened to be gone that day, and I was driving down the road, and my brother Jim was selling farm, and I was listening to it, watching it, and the person that bought it was in a combine harvesting corn. They sit there and bought it. It's so easy. And myself, I'm not a computer person. I'm probably the only person maybe left in existence that never said email in my life. I'm not. Never sent an email? I'm not the computer. So when they say, well, I can relate. Hey, listen, I don't have a computer. I don't do that. So if somebody can't get on and get a computer and bid, there's a toll-free number right there on the screen. My brother Bill's here. My brother, Jim, or John, Joe, Bill, whoever. We'll get you taken care of. So we don't eliminate any of our land is huge in this company. I mean, huge. And it's a live event. And there's also a button you can watch how many people are spectators. So there's people get on just to watch the auction. Sure, Mark Stocks watched several of them, different people. So there might be, 300 people, 350 watching an auction, another 70, 80 registered bidders for sale, which is not uncommon at all. So there you're looking at, 350, 400 people. If you had that at a little community center, there'd be maybe 25 or 30 people, and everybody knew your business. Everybody knows, and talk about the mileage people buy machinery and how far it travels. We're getting an average 6, 7, 8, 9 states per auction, per land auction. So we're opening that up to so many more people. I love it. It's just, it's a really big factor. And we have Nate and Tim and Jim Rob and Alan. And Alan's, we get ready to sign up a large land auction as we speak. There have been 3 calls come in this morning already. So, I get it, and I love all aspects of it, but land is huge in this company.
Well, it's interesting when you, years ago, started sending me clips of your land auctions. And, people leave. Yeah, they maybe think, why, what are you talking about land? But I did was like, oh, my God, send me more of that. Because our audience, they can't get enough of it. What this Chief Spring in Southeast Iowa, Tim or Nate, where you guys are, or Alan up our way, Western Minnesota, what that bring? And just curious, you guys know, I've been seeing on the machinery side, good condition use, even through last year as we were adjusting, the late model stuff adjusting, but the good use stuff is still, obviously, some of the results you guys do every day are showing it. But would you say it's kind of similar on the land side? The right piece of land values, even though things are, more challenged last year, is still holding strong value-wise?
100%, yeah. Yeah, 100%. You bet. Yeah, some people say it's softened. I personally don't think the land that we've dealing with here has changed the value of it very, very much, if any. Myself. But I want to touch on something else you said, Dan. It seems like there's more and more people on these land sales. Every sale we have, more and more people getting registered and viewing. That number just keeps getting more and more every sale.
What do you say? Well, I definitely think that we're in an interesting time with a lot of things going on in the commodity markets. Of course, I farm also, and you're very hands-on in the agricultural industry. But I do agree with Jim. I think the land market remains strong. For whatever reason, we're bringing in buyers that are not traditional farmers. We're bringing in buyers that aren't necessarily neighbors, although they're a very big part of it. And I do agree with what Dan said. There are buyers coming from a lot further out, and let's face it, these buyers live in different states, but they maybe were from there, and they want to continue their portfolio of land and buy land that's close to land that they already had, they already inherited, but they now live in Arizona. They live in Florida. They had moved, but the family farm is still intact. So it isn't out-of-state buyers per se of people that are not from the area. They just have moved out and connected. Those people have accumulated wealth, and they like land in their portfolio of what they have. So we're continuing to see a little bit different Meyer. I think the farms continue to get bigger, and no doubt there. I think that we're going to see a lot of land move in the next few years.
Sure.
How far in Minnesota will you see?
You know what I've noticed the last 2 years, and especially with these virtual land auctions, is we always have a strong local presence of farmers, but we're getting investors that are logging on that need to do a 1031 exchange, and they're under a timeline, and they're looking at the drone videos, they're looking at the soil maps, they're calling us up and saying, what are your thoughts on the spot? And we're telling them exactly what we know. If I get this plot, will you share who's currently renting it so we can have them firing it back? So it's no longer a 6, 7, 8 county. It's multiple states away. It's really and the thing too is, if you're an investor and you need to do a 1031 exchange, we've got the supply every single day. We've got farms pretty much every single day that are coming up for sale that they will sell. This is the date. This is the time. You're going to help determine the price. So it makes a lot of sense for the astute investor, for the farmers. It's just a really, really, really good tool going forward. And I love these virtual auctions. They are really, really, really good.
So Nate, your take? The stock market's wobbly. Is money shifting? Maybe.
So the fundamental facts. So Jim, Tim, Alan, all I agree with them. I don't think the land market is suffering. I think, the people that are purchasing land, people talk about, well, the banking industry is a little bit wobbly. The access to credit maybe isn't there. But, in Iowa, less than 25% of the farms carry a mortgage.
Yeah.
So
strong balance
sheet. So the people that are buying land, they have the cash. The little ups and downs in the commodity prices don't affect those people's desire or ability to buy. And then I think there's a new generation of investors that are looking at land a little differently. Used to be, looking at this 8 to 10 year deal. We could buy that thing, we could flip it 8 to 10 years. You have a group of people that are beginning to invest in land that are looking at land as a 50 to 100 year play. And so those people, they have money. They're not borrowing money to buy that land. So, the strong farmers, a different feel of investors that are beginning to compete for land, I think that supports the price for a long time.
Well, guys, whether it's land or machinery, as I think back, I did the 35 and a half years now and compiled prices. As I drill it down, I mean, the brutal honesty and truth of the auction data price point, whether it's land or machinery, what is this thing worth? Jim Huff is selling you today. Piece of land, tractor, whatever. Alan, Minnesota. Nate, Tim, Dan, Mark. Boo, what did it break? And I found that interested that people need to know, like, they want to. And again, hats off to all you guys, all your decades of experience through the ups and downs of different times of farming, helping people sell, helping buyers find the land and equipment they need. You guys, it's been so much fun to work with you. And Casey, this has been really fun. I've wanted forever to have actually a long table like this. People in the industry were just talk long form. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking time. I know there's a lot of stuff going on here with everybody at this table, so I really appreciate you guys taking time and being a part of this. So any final thoughts you guys want to throw out before we close things down?
Final thought, if you're thinking of an auction, land and or equipment, we always tell people, no obligation. Let us show you a bad offer. We don't get every one of them. We never have. There's always competition. There always will be competition, which is a good thing. But I feel with the team we have around us, and I would love to go into the team behind the scenes. I always like to do that, but they know who they are. I know whether it's Cody Oltz or our president, Jackie Glassman, or my brother, Bill Sullivan, who's here every morning and makes coffee at 6:30. You'll never really see him on TV.
Bill makes the coffee here.
Bill's here every morning and opens the doors and that's on that lead. And when there's a fire to be put out, he does it. And just this team here is just a small part of it. We just would like have a chance at your auction should be having it.
Well, 700,000 bidders. That's folks. That's the reason we talk to those guys. So again, they'll treat you right, buyer and seller. All these years of experience. But again, guys, thanks for how you do it, and always with a smile. That's what I like hanging out with you guys. Do it the right way.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.